Join us for the following previews.
Hi, Lindsay.
Oh, hi, Ronald.
What's new?
Nothing. Everybody says I'm too little.
Really?
I'm thinking of running away to McDonald Land.
McDonald Land? That's where I'm from.
Yeah, I hear it's really nice.
I hear where you're from is really nice, too.
It's okay.
Yeah, because you got that basketball hoop over your garage. And your back porch, it has that great wind chime.
I made that at summer camp.
Plus, there's that beautiful field.
Where I chase butterflies.
Hey, when you're in McDonald Land, who's going to make the decorations for your dad's birthday party? Who's going to be the snowflake in the school play?
Ronald.
Who's going to feed Mr. Goldfish?
Hey, Ronald, I think I hear my mom calling me.
Oh, okay. Bye, Lindsay.
And now, our feature presentation.
Welcome, friends, to Workshopping Humanity for the first time in maybe a year. We are back in the new year. It's 2024. It is time that we start chugging along. So this is exciting because, as you can already see from if you're watching this or you're listening to it, we're going to have a little bit of a different structure here than usual. So Workshopping Humanity started in October of 2021. My first guest was, I know a lot of you people know, is Tristan French, and we discussed Boyhood, and it was very much a one-on-one interview. And we're evolving it a little bit from that. We still are going to have some one-on-one interviews with people about movies that they do love, and that's going to be kind of a special feature segment within the show. But the show itself, we're going to be kind of dissecting media literacy at its most common form, because I think something that a lot of the contributors of Workshopping Humanity and myself have had issues with reading articles and watching videos online about just media in general is the lack of media literacy and the lack of actually discussing the content of the film and the news and just putting it out there at blank value. And so I think our goal here is to be able to really dissect film and media in general and really get down to it outside of all of the fluff that a lot of people talk about. And so each month is going to have a different theme regarding the movies that we tackle. So it's not just going to be like, oh, we're reviewing every current movie and release, because a lot of us don't even care about the movies that are coming out in a certain month. But each one's going to have a certain theme revolving around something going on. So this month it is award season, so we will be covering some more topical films, but that also checks out with what we do here. And so the first episode is going to be The Holdovers, which I thought was a very fitting first episode for all of us. And so I'm going to introduce the guests on the podcast today. So first off, we've got host Jared Rocha. Say hi, Jared.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to all this.
Yeah. And then we have George Ehret.
Hello. Excuse my voice. I am recovering from a cold right now, so yeah. That's why I sound like a former smoker.
It happens, And now we have Alex Helmer.
Hi, guys. What's up?
Yeah. Who is fresh off a film premiere.
Yes. Exciting. We're not talking about that today. Luckily enough, because I've talked about it to nearly everyone. So it's good to talk about something a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we get to talk about look, this is something that both Alex and I definitely have a bonded, shared experience with, but we will definitely get into that. Today we're talking about The Holdovers, which is my favorite movie of the year. Alex, it's yours as well, right?
Yeah. I went back and forth between that and another movie, but especially on rewatch, I even calculated, I estimated in my mind, this will probably go up on rewatch, especially not just now, but in 2024 and 2025 so why not just put it number one,
Yeah, no, this is a yearly watch movie for me for sure, for the rest of time, for the rest of my life. And so, but before we get into The Holdovers, so what I've decided that we're going to start each episode with is talking about some topical news within the media industry and kind of just going over our thoughts, feelings, opinions on it. And once again, trying to heal media literacy in the way that we can. So what I wanted to bring up first is something kind of, I think, exciting that happened. Is public domain happens every January 1st, and things are released into the library for the public to use. And this year, Steamboat Willie / Mickey Mouse was released into the public domain, which after 95 years, which is insane. So here's why I actually think this is a very, very good and very, very positive thing. And number one, as a lot of you know, I work at the Walt Disney Company. I do not have issues with them directly. That being said, the fact that they were able to keep Mickey Mouse out of the public domain for this long is almost a criminal offense to me. They've definitely paid and bartered their way to extend public domain to 95 years. If you guys don't know, public domain originally was 14 years. And it has extended and extended and extended. And a lot of it has been directly because of the Disney company. So the fact that it is like, okay, let's put it into it now. People can use the character, I think is incredibly positive for fair use in the future for creatives like us. And regardless of that, we also know that immediately hack filmmakers are making a horror movie, Mickey Mouse, which is, just an excuse. I mean, here's the thing. It happened with also the Winnie the Pooh horror movie. Both of those movies are excuses for lazy filmmakers to get their movie seen because they're doing the first of something. And so in that regard, it is annoying, but I think overall it is a positive reflection of the way things are going. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
I mean, like the best thing that come out of this whole thing thus far is like some of the memes people have been making with Mickey Mouse now, or some of the memes that like people like have kind of made out of this. Not all of them are like that great, but like some of them, like for some reason, I just see like I saw one on Threads the other day that just had Henry Kissinger is dead running across the top of the Steamboat Willie thing.
Yeah.
which I don't know why. I just was absolutely dying because of it. I feel like Disney at some point might try to copyright him again, which I don't know if they can do that because it is officially public domain now. But yeah, I mean, I don't think they should do that. I don't think they should be allowed to do that if they aren't, or if they are. And I mean, the point you were making about that stupid horror movie that's being made right now, I mean, who cares? I guess I'm not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But you can there's probably really interesting things you can do with that character that you weren't originally allowed to do because Disney had their copyright on it. And so I mean I don't know exactly what that would be because I haven't really thought about that much, but if someone has an interesting idea that they can take with the Mickey Mouse character, now's their opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, so what I read is that they do still own the iconic the pants, the red and the yellow dots, that's still Disney branded. But the idea of the mouse itself and the likeness of the mouse is in the public domain now, which is interesting. And I don't how long will they even keep because here's also the interesting thing about Disney in general. The only reason they are as successful as they are is because they abuse public domain properties. Peter Pan, Cinderella, Snow White, all of these things were public domain that they adapted. And so the fact that they were able to control, manipulate public domain for so long after
it's ironic.
It's very weird. And so does anyone else have any thoughts on this? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I didn't think they would do it to the. I never thought that like Brett said they extended it. I thought they would keep extending it because obviously that is the brand, right? And that's the face of the brand. So anything that would be a detriment to that, whether the product. Even whether the Mickey Mouse movie is good or bad, it's still a detriment to the product because it's so off-brand. But at the same point, Disney has done so much damage to a lot of their brands already by virtue of terrible movies and such. So I don't know, Brett, if you like Peter Pan and Wendy, or if
I'm
but like
mixed, very mixed on it.
But even content like that, but regardless of opinion, it's audience wise, nobody really liked that movie, and it hurt the brand. So if they're gonna be continually doing that to a lot of their properties, then putting Mickey Mouse in the public domain, I don't think it's such a big deal because again, they've done such damage to a lot of their properties in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And sorry.
I really don't have too much to say. Just Disney just not been a good spot these past couple of years. And it really, really sucks. I feel bad for like all the artists, and just so many. Could be a whole separate episode why everything's going down. And so I hope the artists get to use Mickey in like other ways in a big low budget horror movie. So good for them on that. I don't know. I still hope Disney can find a way to like come back. You know, I don't know why they've been really sucking right these past couple of years.
It is a whole other episode to explain why. I could lay you out my thesis, especially being someone who is kind of behind the scenes right now too. I can tell you my thesis, but we would never get to the holdovers, so I'll end it right there. We'll put a pin in it. Maybe that'll be an interesting episode to come back to. And then, out of curiosity for any of you guys, do you guys have anything else in the week that just kind of interested you that you wanted to discuss before we move on?
It's not necessarily a news thing, but it's just a movie I'm not hearing a lot about. This week there's a movie coming on Netflix called Good Grief. It's directed by Dan Levy, who did Schitt's Creek, which is a big popular kind of sitcom, but this one he's directing, and it's more about this guy who loses both his husband and his mother, and kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, like within a couple of weeks. And so the story is more about grief, and like his group of friends is to go to like Paris, and it's kind of like this mix of like funny and sad, and it just Netflix is kind of like, of course, dumping it this Friday, and just no one's talking about it. Based on the trailers and a little bit of reviews I've read, it's getting kind of like good buzz. Of course, I'm not saying it's a top 10 Oscar contender, but I think it's something that looks really good, and I just want to help spread the word. If you guys want to check out on Friday, January 5th, whenever you're hearing about this. Yeah.
Cool. Totally check that out. I mean, I think this episode's probably going to release on the 5th, so
okay. If so, check it. Open your Netflix right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was about to say this week, I guess, because the episode releases on the 5th, it'll be more relevant. But Night Swim comes out this week, which is, I guess, the first big movie of 2024.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more glad because I keep seeing the promotional material every single place I go. I can't escape.
I saw it before Poor Things.
Yeah, I did too.
Same here, yeah.
Every movie you go into, where you turn on cable, it's on my Fire Stick. It's probably on my computer. Right? If I go on YouTube and I watch a video, there's like a good chance that trailer will play beforehand. I'm just so glad. I think that movie looks trash, but it's gonna make a ton of money, which is good.
It does
you know,
look good. It does not look good.
it's gonna make.
I think Universal after Megan is like, we're putting horror movies in January now. We're putting first week in January. We're putting horror movies there.
Yeah.
Because of Megan. So thank you, Megan.
I have.
They've been doing that for a while.
I have one big thing. Oh, sorry. I have one big thing I have to say about Night Swim. I saw the trailer before Poor Things, okay, as well. And when I was watching the trailer, I was like, they're making a Marco Polo horror movie. I was waiting for it to come up Marco Polo, and then it said Night Swim. And I was like, there is no way that was not the original title. There's no way that they workshopped it and went, yeah, no, guys, we really can't call this Marco Polo. Like, there's no way. They totally set that up in the trailer.
Well, based on, like, because I was looking on Letterboxd, I was looking like, oh, who is the director? And I guess it's the same director who did a short film called Night Swim. So I'm assuming he's directing from his own short.
I'm just telling you right now, if they had named it Marco Polo, it would have made more money.
It would have been so. I can imagine the trailer right now, like when she's in the water going Marco Polo, Marco, and then the ghost comes out,
The
and then
title just slowly comes up.
amazing. I love it.
Yeah, of course.
Also,
but I was ready for it. I was ready to laugh, and then it just said Night Swim, and I was like, okay, that's the most generic title I've ever heard in my life. Like, what?
Yeah,
Why is Carrie Condon also in this as well? Like, my girl,
Yeah.
this is your
Oh my
project with
God.
Banshees, but
Well, you know what? She's got to make some money so she can make Banshees too. You know.
oh, I would love that. Her journey on being a librarian. Yeah. I'm down.
Barry Keegan's dead. Never mind.
Barry Keegan's dead.
Yeah, I was about to say he could join now.
Yeah, he died and went to Saltburn. So those are some things that are going on in the media world. Now let's head on to The Holdovers, which I am super excited about because this is my favorite movie of the year. I haven't posted all my favorite movies of the year yet on Workshopping Humanity. Spoiler alert, this is my number one. And so I saw this movie. Alex and I actually both saw this movie together for the first time at the Toronto International Film Festival. And I have seen it once more, actually. I meant to go see this like 5 times in theaters. My schedule got busy, but I did see it once more at the Disney Springs AMC. So I've seen it twice now. And, you know, it was interesting because, and I think Alex can attest to this, in the TIFF audience, it is kind of hard to like sometimes gauge how a movie is going to do with a TIFF audience because like if I was to tell you how successful movies would have been, I would have told you that like Next Goal Wins was going to win Best Picture depending on how the TIFF audience was reacting to movies. And so, but watching it, I was incredibly moved by it and I was super excited about it the first time watching it, but it actually like just genuinely grew on me within a second watch as well. Because it was one of those like I was really hoping that it wasn't just the time and the setting of the film that made me love it so much, and I'd go back later and be like, okay, well that was just kind of the buzz, but like this is still a good. No, it still resonated with me, and not only that, it resonated with me even more on a second watch of The Holdovers. This movie is. A lot of people have said this already, but it's warm and it's sweet, but it's also incredibly cynical, and you know, I think going into award season, a lot of people peg this as like, oh, this is going to be the Green Book of this year. This is going to be like the movie that your parents really like that maybe shouldn't have won Best Picture, and it will because, and that is not what this movie is at all.
Yeah.
It is working on a completely different level than that. Regardless if you like Green Book or not, that's kind of outside the question. I'm just saying that this movie is a different animal than that for sure. I think it captures its 70s aesthetic so well. It feels like it could have came out in that era. It feels like it should be in the AFI whatever already. So like I loved it. We'll get more and more into the film, but I just want to get some general first reactions. I'll pass it to you first, Alex.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we both saw it during TIFF. It was the second movie in a 5-movie day for me. So it was kind of a movie I was just like, oh, okay, I'm already looking forward to like the other movies because there's just so much on my plate, right? And especially because this movie was weirdly easy to get tickets for at TIFF. Yeah. So also I was like, my excitement level wasn't like I knew I should have been excited for it, more excited than I should have been, but I wasn't really there. But then the movie started within like 30 seconds, within the first shot of the movie. And then the opening credits, I was into it and I was loving it. And then the entire movie was just an experience in itself, to the point where, you know, after it ended, I wanted to show it to every single person I knew. And I knew it was just, you know, it was the movie of the decade for me, like the 2020s. I showed it to my family since. My dad has now watched it more times than I have. He even felt like it was like 11 o'clock and he fell like he like we had watched it like earlier in the day and he turned it back on and fell asleep to it because, you know, that's that type of movie, you know, where it's like like a comfort watch. You can just like sit down, like you can be your lowest of lows, like you're most uncomfortable, and you can put on that movie and even it like you don't even have to pay attention. Your eyes can just be somewhere else. Your mind can be somewhere else, but it'll still be a movie that like brings you down to earth. And I can't wait to watch it. In preceding years, not just Christmases, but Thanksgivings and New Year's and all of that. And I'm also very, 20 years from now, I don't know if The Holdovers will be considered like one of the Christmas movies, like along with the Home Alones and the Christmas stories and everything like that. But I hope it is, because I will defend its Christmas merit.
Yeah, it definitely has Christmas merit. I think that it's going to be like an older Christmas hit, because it is, it's pretty profane, and it's going to be a little, raunchy in that regard. But I still think it'll go down as like I mean, Love Actually is considered a Christmas classic.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in a similar route. So, but yeah, I wholly contest everything you said. How about you, George?
I did not see this at Toronto because I did not go to Toronto next year. No, this movie was on my radar for a very long time because it was a movie that I and a lot of other people caught on to kind of early. Is like, okay, this is, Alexander Payne. He wrote, he directed Sideways and The Descendants in Nebraska, which were like, very, acclaimed movies, but also, very big awards movies in their respective years. And, he's made a lot of other films like Election and everything. And, the plot sounded like this could be very, kind of heartwarming and, I guess crowd pleasing in a way. I don't know that's what I would call it necessarily. But a movie that audiences would very, very easily like. And Paul Giamatti, of course, was in it. It was very easy to say that he could get nominated or maybe even win. And, the movie, it premieres and it comes out. I think, in terms of the whole Green Book thing, I think people kind of thought that because some people thought like it could be kind of, I guess, like saccharine or something, and just be like, oh, why is this movie gonna like win Best Picture when this other movie that I really love might not, become a villain kind of in that sense, not for the same reasons that Green Book was a villain. But this movie very much is not that, and it's, it's not my favorite movie of the year, but it is a very wonderful movie. The 70s aesthetic of it is, I think, done very well. And the fact that it's shot on film, for one, I will always champion that film. Shooting on film is better than shooting on digital. So I love that aspect about it, and I love all the needle drop, the Cat Stevens needle drops. It's a very Bridge Over Troubled Water album type beat. And I not only is it like a generally like a very heartwarming kind of sweet movie, like I think it's also like it's meaningful in a sense that like it's about people who kind of like find their place with a certain with certain people who are in a similar place. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's very like it kind of shows like there's somebody there who also feels what you're feeling in a way, and you're not you're not alone, and you're also like you can find a community with these people. You can like you just know that there's people there who can be there for you. And it's not a wholly original movie by any means, but I think, one, it's still all like executed very well. Number two, it's still, I think it does things in a way that feels fresh and feels kind of new, even despite the fact that it's very old and, well, not very old. What am I saying? It's made like an old movie. Mm-hmm. And it feels like, it's a time capsule of a film, which, works very well. And, I love the performances and the script. And it's a movie that I could very easily just recommend to my parents, who I feel like would not enjoy a lot of movies that I watch and do not enjoy a lot of movies that I watch. So, yeah, I would. I think this is a great movie, and I'm glad that it's found its place with a lot of people, or a lot of people have found a strong connection to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jared, what are your initial first thoughts on the Holdovers?
Yeah, so I saw this actually after AFI Fest. I was gonna head home, but AFI Fest is in LA, and that weekend was when Holdovers was starting to do their like limited release. So I'm like, let me check it out before I really head back home. Save me a trip for whenever it expands. I have to drive an hour away to see it because that's that type of movie. And yeah, going in, I'm walking in with all this praise of like, oh my gosh, it's such a warm-hearted, like feel-good movie. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm down with that. And then I'm just blindsided by like, I don't mean this in a bad way, just how like sad all these characters were, and how like I feel so sadly for each, like, oh my gosh, these poor like people. If in terms that makes the movie that much more rewarding in terms of like how they find how life kind of just throws them together, and they find each other, and they learn from each other. It's hard to go last, as I kind of just agree with what everyone else says. I love the kind of warm holiday aesthetic, which that's my point, makes the movie sadder, right? Everyone's like, the holidays they're supposed to be with their family, and here they are. Angus, his family doesn't want him, basically. Mr. Hyam doesn't have anyone because no one likes him. Mary Lamb, at least she has family, right? But like, her son just died in the Vietnam War, a war that probably could have been avoided, right? But it's war, so it's like, what did she lose her son for? And it's just, yeah, that's what I walked away from, really, truly, is like, characters are just so like, it's so sad, man. But just the vibes are great. I think kind of the message is great, and I think even though the ending it's a realistic ending, but I don't know. There's definitely still hope, right? Like, yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk spoilers, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
Paul Giamatti, he gets fired, right? But I think, at least there's hope for Dominic Sessa's character. Mary does visit her family, right? And so she hopefully finds a lifeline there. And so there's still hope, which I always love and appreciate when it's from a movie like this. So yeah.
Yeah. The branch back, you're all kind of saying about this movie is about like how you can recommend it to the family. So I did that. I was like, when I saw the Holdovers, I was texting my parents. I was like, "You got to see this movie. It's wonderful. It's delightful." And I think within the context of TIFF, I'd gotten out of watching movies like The Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall, which are like, these really like bleak movies. And so maybe I was like, "Yay! Look, the Holdovers. It's actually like, it's kind of cute compared to the rest of these movies." But when when my parents saw this movie, I kind of set them up for something that they were not expecting, because I was like, yeah, it's like, look, here's my little hill to die on here, because I was like, it's kind of like, like It's a Wonderful Life or A Christmas Story. It's a Wonderful Life is just as depressing as this movie is. People don't want to admit that. It is literally about a man who's on the verge of suicide because his company's going under and he hasn't achieved the things he wanted to in his life. But everyone remembers the ending and they're like, "Oh, that made me feel so good." No, you have like 2 hours of pretty bleak filmmaking up to that point. Regardless, that's my hill I'll die on there. But yeah, so like my parents went to go see it, and like my mom hated this movie.
Okay.
What?
Just like hated this movie. Like, she was like, "I cannot believe that you recommended this to us." She goes, because she was like, I I was waiting for the moment where it got cute, and it was never cute. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. Like, my dad liked it, to be fair. My dad was like, yeah, no, I thought it was a really good movie, but I think you set us up for thinking it was like Home Alone. And so I guess that is my warning for you guys, is like, this isn't just a happy-go-lucky Christmas movie. This movie is about trauma and pain and isolation. But I think you can find real catharsis in that. But like, that's what, in my opinion, that's what makes the movie so much better. I'll kind of go into my direct feeling about why this movie really, really resonated with me personally. So last year, my favorite movie of the year was The Fabelmans. And the reason why was because I felt like that was a direct comparison to my life. Like, if I was to give someone like a couple of Blu-rays to be like, hey, look, here's my story up to this point, like The Fabelmans would definitely be on that list for me. Like, there was specific shots, scenes, and moments in that movie where I went, yeah, no, I feel that. And that really called me out. And I hadn't had a movie that had directly done that up until this movie. There was specific shots and sequences in this movie that directly called me out. And this is why. So last year, this time, actually, no, it's been 2 years ago now. Okay, I'm old. 2 years ago, I started working at the Walt Disney Company. That is actually a big reason why Workshop of Humanity has been on hiatus for a long time. And it was good. It was fun. I came back home for a little bit, and then I decided to come back. So I came back last November to work for the company, and it was Thanksgiving weekend. And so I was away from my home, my family for Thanksgiving, and again, had just started a new job, so I really couldn't get away from Christmas. So I pretty much spent my entire Christmas time away from home, away from family, away from everything. I was in Florida doing custodial shifts. Like, I worked on Christmas Day. I'd FaceTime my family in the morning. That's essentially how it went. And so essentially last Christmas for me was kind of this really bittersweet time in my life where I was trying to figure out really who I was and what I wanted to do and what my priorities was. And I wasn't even quite sure what I was doing. And so whenever this movie started up at TIFF, I kind of immediately understood Dominic Sessa's character of feeling like he is trapped in this place and needs to get out, because I immediately felt that suffocation last Christmas. And it was weird because it feels weird to complain about, because it's like, I was stuck in Disney World. Like, that's not a terrible place to be stuck at. But regardless, there was this idea of, if you ever spend Christmas outside of what you're familiar with, a lot of this struggle will ring true. A lot of this idea of like, because it brings up this introspective idea of, who am I? What are my priorities? And I love that idea that it's three different people connecting that have completely three different paths. But at the end of the day, you realize just how similar they are in so many ways. Because we all have similar aches and pains like this that we don't. I think we're all so much more similar than we realize. And we all kind of ache and want the same things, but we come from such different backgrounds. And I think this movie's kind of a wonderful viewpoint on that. But there is a certain sense of like melancholy bliss that this movie so captures so well. And it's something that I felt so much last year. And so it is just like one of these, like, I have these movies where I would show them to someone to be like, I've been here and I feel this movie and I feel this movie's energy so well. It is such a close movie to me. And again, last year that was The Fabelmans for me, and this year it is The Holdovers for me. I don't know what it'll be in 2024. Probably Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, but
we're on a 2-year streak with our favorite movies, so let's make it 3 and not say Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, because then the year before that, I'm sure we disagreed with, because it was Drive My Car, which I don't know how that would connect with my map, but we know how much Alex Helmer loved Evil Does Not Exist.
But for me, because Brett had a great story, I also had kind of a relatable story that because a couple years, well, not even a couple years ago in middle school, I was actually a holdover. When in my middle school, I went to a private middle school, and a vast majority of our grade went on a ski trip, and there was like around five people who didn't go, me being one of them. And it was just a week of me stuck with a bunch of people who we didn't really know each other too well. It was kind of just a bunch of randos. And obviously it was a bit different. I was allowed to go home at night. It was in a boarding school, so I got to see my family and everything. But just for a week, I was with these like random kids, and we had like one teacher, and we would just do random shit all day. And we got really close. And it was still one of the best weeks of my life. I still remember it really fondly as just kind of a great bonding, just a great experience in which we were all situationally, we were all able to relate to each other, right? And it was never really like that again, right? After that week, we were all kind of obviously schoolmates and stuff, but we never really connected the same way. And it was almost that Stand By Me effect if we went our separate paths, and we didn't really, it was never the same again, right? But at the same time, we had that bond. And I think that's originally why I connected to this movie so much. And Brett mentioned, I think it is bleak, but I wouldn't say it's pessimistic in the sense that it's not beating you down with trauma. It's not like, oh, here's this and here's that, to the point where you're like, oh fuck, like this is like unwatchable. It balances out with some, like, the comedy I think is really well placed. I think it's kind of really good. Like there's that moment where he's in the convenience store and he's talking about why he got kicked out of Harvard. And first of all, the blocking in that scene is really cool, where he's like walking around. Yeah, it's really, really well blocked. And then he's like walking around telling Angus about kind of why he got kicked out. And then he goes to the convenience store. We cut for the first time because it's a long, and we cut for the first time to the convenience store, the shopkeeper. And he's like, oh, here you go, killer. And he hands him the bottle. I think it's just like a brilliant moment of like escapism, where you're not always entrapped within all of that bleakness. And the movie knows when to kind of give you a break, which I think makes it like so brilliant.
Not to interrupt you, but have you seen the anatomy of a scene on that sequence?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, Alexander Payne, actually, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Actually, like, dissects that moment and how, and he it almost like he describes that store clerk kind of as like the shark in Jaws. Like you don't see him for a while, and you don't realize that he's in the room until it pans over to him. And then there's that moment where the audience is like, "Oh, that's hilarious! He's been listening into them the whole time." You know, and it's just unexpected, great moments that are throughout this entire movie. And again, it's one of these things where this movie could have been so like by the numbers filmmaking if it wanted to, especially like the script is very good, but it doesn't require someone to be really flashy with their direction. And Alexander Payne takes that in every sequence. You know, I think I haven't seen all of his movies, but I think it's by far and away his best directed movie out of the ones I've seen. Yeah,
that's the most surprising thing about it is that I like Sideways. I really like Election. I haven't seen Nebraska. But this movie is so, it just blew me away because I haven't loved, I never even considered him even close to one of my favorite directors, but this movie just blew me away.
Yeah, it made me want to go watch the rest of his filmography, because I've only seen Sideways and Election too, and I think they're both like decent. Like neither one of them spoke to me on a personal level. Yeah. No, I own the shooting script of Sideways for some reason. That's a whole other conversation.
I have the same thing, Brad.
Nice.
That's crazy.
But that is so interesting to me though, because like also I feel like people in awards bodies have loved Alexander Payne for so long that I'm kind of wondering how that will translate now in this award season. It's already getting a lot of buzz, but I'm just wondering, in Oscar's sake, like if he'll get the recognition, you know?
I mean, I've never been of the opinion that it would win Best Picture. The reason I say that is not because like oh my god, it's a villain or something. There's nothing like, I think when people vote for Best Picture, they vote for like, I think it's not true for every voter, obviously, but like a lot of them vote with like something that's like a feeling that something is important, or like it's meaningful in a way to like the times, or kind of what's happening. The Holdovers doesn't really have an angle like that. I didn't really sense one when it was, premiering or before. And I when I watched the film, that was kind of confirmed to me. I don't really think there's anything about this quote unquote important, which is not a knock on the movie, obviously. But like, if you're gonna like win Best Picture, I think that's kind of like not a great sign. I think another I think like any hope of this movie winning picture, also like it's like kind of slim to none now, because the movie didn't do as well as at the Golden Globes as it probably should have. Like getting director, like it did get director of screenplay, and I don't think I think Pain is not like fully locked in, which you would think is kind of crazy because not only is the movie so well made, but Alexander Payne got in for his other 3 Oscar contenders.
It is interesting. I just think some of these awards bodies are incredibly different now too. We have to like
like they kind of like. I mean, the director's branch has always been kind of like snooty, and they like to throw curveballs at you, like David Lynch from Mulholland Drive, or they did Pavel Pawlikowski for Cold War, and now like we're more than likely, I think, going to get Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
So I think honestly, like if this wasn't so stacked, because you've got Nolan and Scorsese and Lanthimos, Gerwig and Glazer, and then even beyond them, there's also like Justine Triet or Bradley Cooper, Celine Song. Like, I think if it was less crowded, Pain would probably just be in, but that's kind of not how this year has been going.
Yeah.
And there's a chance he could still get in, like if Gerwig is expendable, but or if Zone of Interest just is not as embraced, which I kind of don't think is going to happen at this point. I think like he's still a possibility, but like I think it's just not as strong this year. Otherwise, I think he would probably be in.
Yeah, I think, and not to get on the tangent of what we'll talk about on Gold Reverse Horses eventually, or
Oscar
Mafia, yeah, whatever. But I think Gerwig might end up missing for Pain at the end when it comes to the Oscar because of what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
Gerwig is also getting nominated for screenplay. Pain wouldn't get nominated for screenplay at all.
I don't think that's actually like what would matter. And the reason I say that is, well, number one, a lot of the directors and writers and directors branch overlap quite a bit, but also because like, I mean, Nolan wrote his own script, Scorsese wrote his own script, Lanthimos didn't, but that doesn't really matter. He didn't for The Favorite either. But a lot of writer-directors literally the directing lineup last year was all writer-directors, even Spielberg, which he usually doesn't do. So
interesting. Yeah, I think that we've seen, the Oscars like snub Villeneuve before and stuff like that. Sometimes they kind of don't go for the big, showy summer blockbuster film in the directing branch. We've seen them not go for that before. So I'm curious. I think Gerwig might get the snub. That being said, that's another conversation for another time, I guess. But regardless, yeah, I just think that I'm very curious. Again, I think we talked about this, to see this movie's legacy and how it's remembered, because I do think that, because sometimes outside of award season, we end up forgetting that these movies like exist, which is sad. It's one of these things where it's like, we mentioned Banshees of Inisherin earlier. I was like, oh yeah, I love that movie. I kind of forgot the movie existed for a second because we haven't been talking about it every other week. But I do feel like within the Holdovers Christmas aesthetic, it could be something that ends up lending itself into pop culture in a lot more of an interesting way than the vast majority of movies do,
Two like totally random things. One, to get back to your point about like award season, I would say if we didn't have the Oscars or Golden Globes, none of these award seasons, I think movies like Banshees or Drive My Car would be remembered way less.
Totally.
So I think even if you do kind of have a point that Banshees isn't talked about every other day, I think it's still important that we still have something like, oh yeah, Banshees was nominated for Best Picture, have like something written for history in the near future that was like an acclaimed movie and whatnot, on that jazz. Second of all, I really related to kind of what Brett was saying in terms of going to a film festival and you watch two kind of like bleak, depressing movies, because AFI Fest was like mostly like All of Us Strangers and Memory, which are kind of like probably the most like bleak movies I saw there. And then Thank God for American Fiction. That was like the only movie I walked up being like, oh yeah, that was nice. It's nice to have a comedy here, you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah. I also want to say I really wish Focus Features or someone on the team made like a book of all like Mr. Honeyham's like funny quotes, Paul Giamatti's characters' quotes, because there's so many little bangers. Like the ending about like your cancer in penis form and all that. Like beautiful script writing there. But then I also I know it's kind of been like a meme online, but like one of kind of the moments I still remember from this movie is like the Christmas party that all three of them go to. And then there's a shot of, Paul Giamatti. They kind of been building up the whole movie that he might like this other kind of coworker. They go to her Christmas party. I forgot her name. And then like it's revealed kind of like at the last second that she has like either a boyfriend or a husband that walks through the door. And then there's just a shot of like Paul Giamatti like having like pure like sadness and depression on his face, and it's like, darn, man, like you're so, and it works so well with the movie because this guy is so lonely, and it's like, oh, maybe he has a chance with this only lady that's nice to him because everyone else in the school hates him. And it's like, nope, she's taken, like kind of like is like screwing him over yet again. And then of course you have like Mary's breakdown at that party also. So just and the fight with Agnes at the end, where we learn that his like father's dead. Just that party was just bad news.
I'll learn that his father's dead, quote unquote, because what happens later.
Yeah, Payne has he does such a good job in this movie of misdirecting and subverting your expectations of what this movie should actually be. Because I think in a much less interesting movie, that relationship with a woman would have worked out. They set that up for him to have this happy ending, but Payne is showing that like life doesn't really work out like that always, and some people are just kind of sad and they've got to deal with it. And because there's moments throughout this entire movie where, and I think it's maybe why my mom didn't like it at all, is where you're like, oh, we're about to give our characters an out, we're about to give our characters their happiness, we're about to give our characters our answers. And then Payne goes, no, we're not giving them the answers because life doesn't have answers. And I love that. That is throughout this entire movie. Another thing for me that I think is incredibly underrated about this film is the production design and the way that everything looks. Mm-hmm. This is one of the most gorgeously shot and composed movies of the entire year. I mean, like Alex said, there's so much thought in the blocking of every single sequence of this film and what is in the frame and what's not in the frame. That is very striking. And just the way that they make, snow look. It's this entire town and this community is so comfy looking. And it seamlessly looks like it took place in the 70s in a way that like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood did, like that's kind of, but it's just not as flashy and showy as that movie, but he's still doing very similar things with the way that this movie looks and feels and operates. Even in its sound design is a little more mono than what we usually get. You hear the cracks and the grain and everything. And all of that, it could have been such a gimmick for the film. It could have really been hey, look, remember how movies used to be made? Isn't it cool that we made a movie that looks and sounds like this? But it's so germane to what the actual story means and what the characters are conveying that like, it's seamless. The whole thing is seamless. And again, the term masterpiece is thrown around a lot, but it's a masterpiece. I really just there's nothing wrong with this movie to me. I think it's a pretty just tight screenplay and a vision that is executed to the best of its ability. And once again, all three performances Oscar worthy. Again, I'm afraid that Sesta's going to miss because of how stacked that supporting actor category is, and I'll get it if so, but they all bring a different energy to this film and execute it so well. And I'm so glad that Divine Joy Randolph is like sweeping right now because she really deserves it. Like, she really, I think she's the genuine heart of that movie for sure. Mm-hmm. And just an unexpected character because the film is essentially about the relationship between Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa's character, but Divine brings so much to that as well, and that dynamic is so compelling to me. And another thing I love about movies, and some of my favorite movies, are moments that are secluded by themselves, that take time to breathe so you can be in an environment, but then you learn so much about the characters along the way. One of my favorite sequences in this movie is a song set by Crying, Laughing, Loving, where Dominic Sessa is just running through the school and kind of like smoking, cigarettes and like exploring this empty building, which like, if you've ever, because like this movie, like I know it's not technically in the Midwest, but it feels so Midwest to me in a lot of regards. And like this big public boarding school area, like these empty rooms and this like, it feels so lived in to me. Like I'm like, yeah, no, I've been in this room before and I've been in these hallways before and I recognize this kitchen. And that moment where he's just kind of running around seeing all this stuff and you realize that like this is a core memory for this guy. Like he will be 45 years old and remember doing this and being in this specific moment, and that just like that rings so true to me as well. And again, this movie's just filled with moments like that. The when Cat Stevens needle drop is perfect. I know that that needle drop is abused in so many movies, but it works every time. Keep bringing it to me.
It's like 3 movies that had 3. Well, one's a TV show, but like definitely at least 3 different projects this past year for sure.
Yeah.
What other ones were there?
Margaret and Ted Lasso, the finale. Yeah.
And of course, you have Almost Famous almost 20 years ago. That's probably still the best use of that song ever. Yeah. But like that's a whole other
Father
thing.
and Son in Guardians 2 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and wasn't there Father and Son in another one too?
Wait, was Father and Son? I think that was in Ted Lasso.
Yeah, I think that was Ted Lasso.
Okay, I got my songs mixed up.
It's the Cat Stevens love,
Yeah.
And then you have Harold and Maude, but I feel like he curated that whole soundtrack, so maybe that doesn't entirely count. But
yeah, I was gonna say he did the soundtrack for that movie basically.
Well, I mean, to be fair, a lot of people have been calling the Holdovers
Hal Ashby
type
beat. Yeah, which makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't like Coming Home, but I Harold and Maude is a very good movie, and it does strike a lot of similarities to that.
Yeah.
Hal Ashby was the editor before he was a director of that.
Yeah.
I think he even won an Oscar for that, which is interesting.
Yeah. What were you saying, Alex?
No, I was just following up on what you said. Sorry, I just because you said a lot that I wanted to talk about, so I just wrote some of it down.
Yeah.
First of all, like the dynamicness you were talking about with kind of how Payne directs it. I remember first watching this movie because there's 3 distinct acts and progressions of the story in this movie. In the first act, when you have kind of all the kids in the school, you think, oh, okay, this is what this movie is going to be. And then the kids leave the school. Yes. And when I was watching the movie in real time, I was like, oh, no, I really liked that dynamic of Dominic Sessa and Kuntz and the Mormon kid and everything. I like that. And then they left and you're like, oh, no, what is this movie going to turn into? Is this, am I going to be bored? Am I not going to enjoy it any longer? And then it gets even better when you get the second act of the 3 of them just together in the school. They go to the Christmas party. They have a Christmas together, and then you don't think it'll get better from there. And then they go to Boston, right? And then it gets even better there. And then it adds so much to the characters. He sees his dad in Boston, which is really, really painful. Literally, the only line that his dad says is at the final line of that sequence where he talks about like how he thinks they're putting something in his food. It's like the only line that he says, and it's so painful and it's so gut wrenching. But that entire kind of each act progresses both the narrative and the characters in a way where you're always learning something new. You're always getting kind of new information and new kind of I don't know. It's just the dynamicness of the story. I just really enjoyed the setting also from the moment there's one moment, there's a Dutch wide of the tape of like the dinner hall, right? Where you're seeing kind of everyone, all the students, all the faculty eating. They show that exact same angle later on. It's just the three of them eating there. And I don't know, it's just stuff like that where you're comparing and contrasting what the setting looks like kind of with the students and without. And then like you said, Angus, as he's kind of exploring, they use it in all sorts of ways, whether it's him playing piano, him running through the halls. It's even like when they're in the infirmary, like sleeping, they use the setting in such a dynamic way where you're just always getting kind of the best of everything, and you're always kind of visually interested. Even what I love, it's like one of my favorite. Like I don't know, I love to see like opening credits when the directed by like when the text comes up and which image shows up in. When they have the shot of the empty chair, Paul Giamatti's empty chair, and it says directed by Alexander Payne. I don't know. It's like a very small detail that I really love. Mm-hmm. Also, Boston looks beautiful in this movie. I hate Boston in movies because they make it look like the grayest, most bleak, most depressing crime-ridden area you've ever seen in your entire life. I've been to Boston, and it's not like that at all. But even like, I don't know, maybe I went on the wrong day, but even if I live there, I feel like that's not what it's like at all. Like the way Ben Affleck shows it in The Town or like any movie in Boston, it's just like really generic, and like every character has like a really, really intense accent that it's like disconnecting. But this movie really,
sorry.
Exactly. But this movie is like just a refreshing display of that city, almost as an oasis of sorts, where Angus is like dying to go there from the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That like little like alleyway bookstore, 10 out of 10 would go that they visit.
Yes. The prostitute shows up, and
I was like, oh.
That definitely is like the bookstore where you would find like all of your classic literature that you needed.
Yes.
Like I'm like, this is where I'm finding Catcher in the Rye today. Which this film does have Holden Caulfield vibes as well, to be completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of this angst to this whole movie, but again, it's somehow charming. It's not annoying, which is nice.
Yeah. It's hilarious. I think it's one of the funniest movies of the year. Despite being incredibly bleak and dramatic, it's so funny. That scene where he bumps into his old Harvard roommate, and then Angus talks like he pretends to be his nephew, and he's like, "Oh, you made a book on ancient cameras. Tell them about your book about ancient cameras." It's so funny. You have the scene where the janitor dude, who, by the way, I should have gotten more of him. He was golden. He also has the most heartwarming moment in the movie where he gives Mary the necklace, and then she's like, "Oh, I feel bad. I didn't get you anything." And he's like, "All I needed, like, all I need is your beautiful smile."
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like, Jesus Christ, it gets me every time. But it's just a really, really hilarious movie. Everything out of Paul Giamatti's mouth. When the prostitute comes up to him, and Angus is like, "Oh, are you a virgin?" He's like, "No." He says something about like meat in his loins or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll make your toes curl or whatever.
Yeah. It's just like the stuff he says to the students, like what he calls. It's just really, really, really good stuff.
Yeah, one of the most satisfying scenes is when like all the kids are first there and they're first having dinner, and then that one like a-hole bully kid says something about Mary, and he's like, "You should," like basically tells them off, and he says the iconic line like, "Life for people is like a hen house, is shitty and short for most people, and like just be lucky your prestigious ass is like where it's at." I'm like, thank God someone told that kid off. Like,
yeah.
You ever seen the Mormon kid when he takes his glove? He only takes the one glove and throws it. And there's that line where Angus is like, yeah, he took the one glove because he's only left with one, so it hurts that much more. I don't know if you guys remember that. That gave me a good laugh.
Yeah, and that's something interesting about the movie too. It's like it's proposed here at the beginning where you get this idea that like, oh, look at these bratty kids that are disrespectful or whatever. And as a viewer, you're like, yeah, you know what? They are. Kids suck. Look, I'm just gonna be real with you. I work at Walt Disney World. I deal with bratty kids every day, all the time. So I definitely resonated with that. But then as the movie progresses, you're like, oh, but you've pegged this kid all wrong, which essentially means maybe you've pegged all these other kids wrong because everyone has their own story and their own background. And there's a reason that people act the way that they do. And it's another great subversion is, definitely at the beginning, Alexander Payne is doing the get off my lawn mentality with these bratty kids, which is something that I think the vast majority of viewers are going to be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we know that frustration of these entitled kids, And then as the movie progresses, you realize, yeah, no, but maybe they're not as entitled as we thought we are. Everyone has their own background and everyone has their own story. And it ends up becoming a story about empathy, which is why it's perfect for workshopping humanity,
Yeah.
Which I think is a thing.
Even like this scene where like one of the kids like pees the bed and like Angus like helps him like, hey man, just stay and then we'll watch it like first thing in the morning and like that's it helps set up like Dominic Sessa's character like so much and like Dominic Sessa, I think he's truly like one of my favorite performances like of the entire year. He just has great amount of energy. I hope he gets a lot of projects as well. I mean, this is his first time on camera. Like, damn man, like you're going up against like Paul Giamatti and Divine Joy Randolph, and you just build a character with like just so much like energy and angst and just performance so well, and it was just so good. And comedy too. I mean, like when he breaks his arm and like Paul Giamatti has to like shovel all the snow off the car. He's like yelling at him, and my gosh,
I love that line in the bedroom. He's like, "Oh, the asparagus" or whatever.
Oh yeah.
It's great, so great. Something that I thought about whenever we were out of the movie, and I was talking to Alex about it at first. He said something like, if this movie had existed like 30 years ago, so many of these lines would be on the 100 quotes poster you'd see on AFI.
Oh, for sure.
I think that's totally accurate. There's definitely, I don't know what the specific line is going to be, but you know how when Harry Met Sally, we all quote the like, I'll have what she's having line. There's a line like that in this movie that will get quoted throughout time. I don't know which one it is yet because there's so many to choose from, but like that line exists somewhere in this movie. Yeah. It might be the penis cancer line. You never know.
Yeah. Speaking of line readings, the one I just remembered too, just Divine Joy Randolph. When they're watching, was it like the matching game or whatnot? I forgot and they're talking about like dreams or something, and then she's like, man, you can't even dream a whole dream. And just the way she says it with like just so much like sadness and like that's one aspect that kind of just like stayed with me. Again, like I said before, I think just the sadness of these characters stayed with me. And like, and so much so that by the end of the movie, you're like, okay, I have a feeling that these characters are going to hopefully get better. I don't know. Or of course, the fictional characters, but it's not in a place where they're not going to get better. It's not bombarded and tragedy like Alex was kind of saying, but but it's still realistic.
There's another line I remember when they're in the museum. They're talking about something. Paul Giamatti says something to the effect of history isn't just a reflection of the past. It's like a study of the past. It's a representation or reflection of the present or something like that. And Sessa says something to the effect of when you put it like that and you throw in some pornography, it makes it easier to understand.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, and that's such a funny line, but it's also like that line does ring true for sure. Um, And honestly, because you have the whole David Lynch's Eye of the Duck thing, where he says that there's a sequence in every movie that kind of describes the whole movie. There's like one specific moment that might be the Eye of the Duck moment of that whole movie. Is him saying that, because the study of the past, because we are currently watching this movie in the present, and this is a movie about the past and the struggles that these characters are living through and experiencing. Are not at all foreign to us 30 to 40 years later, because we continue to make the same mistakes and ache the same pains, and probably will forever. Yeah. So that's a beautiful sequence.
It's kind of sad. I don't know if the events in this movie could happen today in terms of not to sound like a boomer. I'm not a boomer, but like with cell phones, like if Agnes was just went to his room and read on his phone, didn't have to make the connection with the teacher, right? Could that happen today? And I'm not giving a resounding yes that any of that could happen in the 2020s.
It would be different from time to time, but the core of it could still happen.
Yeah, I was just saying, I imagine if Paul Giamatti took the whole going to Boston, if that happened today, I think unfortunately the parents would be much more angrier, because it's you didn't sign permission slip and blah 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 and all the rules. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they did get pretty angry. He got fired for it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I think the idea of if this took place today, there would be the idea of phones, which is why you see so many modern films try to have an excuse to get rid of phones in an environment like this. We also saw Hell of a Summer at TIFF, and they make a complete thorough plot point about why they can't have phones, because if somebody had a phone, that movie would be solved in 5 minutes. But I don't know. For me personally, I don't know. Again, this is just my whole thought process, is I get bored on my phone after a while. I got to go out and do things. I can't just scroll on my phone, or else I get sad. So I do feel like you could interpret a movie like this today, and maybe at first they just go on their phone, and then they're like, oh, I can't actually do this for a week straight. I have to go outside and see something. And so I don't know. But again, that'd be I don't know how that interpretation would work. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't know. I hear people are addicted to their I'm not trying to say I sound like a boomer so much, but you hear the stories, and some of my friends is like dang, you didn't go out today or no? Yeah.
I think that's what makes this movie kind of as warm as it is, and so nostalgic. One of the reasons is because it's about the power of conversation and the power of talking to people with different lifestyles and viewpoints as you, in that being something that we've kind of lost today, and not being able to do that. I think that's one of the main reasons why I think it's so warm.
That's why I love this idea of this podcast so much. Is just getting a chance to talk about just a certain movie, and just you talk about moments, talk about why we connected with it. And to get some different viewpoints. For example, I would love to do a Saltburn episode, just because I know I want to hear in depth with spoilers why George didn't like it, where his points on it, why the core of why it's so hated on or loved on, and even to examine even kind of my own feelings. Is unfortunately, I'm going to put unfortunately in quotes, this is not the biggest opinion, but it is my number 2 of the year. I think I found that movie
same. Let's go, Jared.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go.
I liked it. It's in the 20s, the 30s, but I liked it.
Let's say it's a major sophomore slump.
Fair. You know what's interesting? Not to go off on Saltburn, but just for a specific moment. People at my work have just nonchalantly brought up that movie in normal conversation. Like
It's-
it is a movie that has expanded away from like the film circle. Like people are like, "Did you see
Yeah.
that movie?
Oh,
What
it's
happened
blown
in
up
that
on
movie?" It's
TikTok.
very interesting.
No, my girlfriend, she had the soundtrack, and I was like, "Oh, that's one of my favorite movies." She's like, "Oh, I didn't see the movie. I just listened to the soundtrack." I'm like, "Oh, we have to see the movie then." So
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no, the soundtrack was literally my playlist, like my junior year of college. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like every song that played, I was like, "This is scary." Like, have they looked at my Spotify? Like when they played "This Modern Love" from Block Party, followed by "Mr. Brightside" from The Killers, and then like M83, I was like, "This is scary." Oh,
You ever
they
make
hit you with the apple bottom
Brett?
jeans later on.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, did you
Yeah.
ever do karaoke of that, Brett?
What?
Did you ever do karaoke of apple bottom jeans?
No, I haven't. No, I didn't.
Nah,
Um,
never on my list.
Should though.
Just one last thing I will say. Should at least be a big cinematography contender, that movie. If anything else, I would sacrifice it not getting a single thing
Yeah.
except cinematography, because my gosh, beautiful, beautiful movie.
Yeah.
It was shot on digital. It was shot on digital, but it was edited to look grainy and shot on film.
Oh my god,
And
why?
Yeah. I don't know how. It didn't look like there was too much correction in post. I don't know. Like other than that, like in terms of color, and I don't know. Maybe it's a bit too simple, compared to kind of other. I don't know, other movies.
I think it looks gorgeous. I mean, the effects
It
are
does.
great,
It's
so,
just not
yeah.
like a lot of like overwhelming, like Deakins-esque,
Yeah.
contrast.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, yeah.
Can I argue that The Holdover should get a cinematography nomination? Because I
Oh,
am
no,
almost-
sure.
It's beautiful.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I was talking about the holdover.
We got one at Indie
Oh.
Spirits.
I was talking about the
Sorry.
holdovers.
Oh,
I was
okay.
talking about Saltburn. Okay.
No, no,
I
no,
was
no.
talking about Saltburn. Sorry.
Wait,
Yeah. But I
you were talking
agree,
about Holdovers? Holdovers was digital,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, but the effect is like it doesn't feel like it's on digital at all.
No.
Not at all.
that's so
Yeah.
strange.
Yeah.
I mean, like the thing is, it's like, and I think I mentioned this earlier. Like, The Holdovers could have easily been one of those movies that like just felt saccharine to them being like, oh look, it looks like the 70s. But like, if I did not know who Paul Giamatti was, and somebody told me, yeah, this was like a Best Picture winner in 1978, and I watched it, I would have been like, yeah, I know that checks out. Like, I think it's pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Um,
I've heard people say he's a dark horse to win Best Actor this year. Like,
That'd be
Yeah,
I don't know if I can see that, though.
he's not getting out there as much, in, like campaigning, so
Well,
maybe
but
they're
also
planning
you
to push him
got-
out this
you
couple
got-
months. Like,
Bradley Cooper and Cillian Murphy. Who are
oh no,
like-
yeah, for sure. I'm just saying, like
Right,
Paul
right.
Giamatti. Like, I haven't seen him on the campaign trail yet. Like, he was in LA for a screening, but other than that, I haven't seen him go on anything. Like, Bradley Cooper's out there.
Bradley Cooper is everywhere.
Yeah.
That
Dude
man-
is thirsty. He is thirsty.
I would argue that Paul Giamatti seems like the kind of guy that would not care. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be like, oh, it's
Yeah.
cool that I won,
I
but like
get it.
that's not really what he's in it.
He's
for.
kind of like Colin Farrell. In that
He-
way.
Well, I
He's
mean,
like
he
sitting
is
on
doing
the-
all
Colin
those.
Farrell, like,
He's
didn't
doing
care
all those
either,
commercials. Like, an Oscar win would validate his decisions to do like T-Mobile commercials and like Cricket Wireless and shit like that.
really.
he's there for the vibes. That's what I'm getting. And like, and I would be too.
A24 though. A24. Can I sit you down? Why on earth are you not pushing for Zac Efron right now? What is happening with
Yeah.
that? What is
I-
happening with that?
I
Yeah.
think they have too much on their plate.
No, but like,
I think they set themselves up.
He's
They
so
have
good.
they have to deal with past lives, right? Past lives. This
Yeah.
gigantic indie phenomenon that everyone can't stop talking about romance and
Yeah.
their past lives and all that. They have Zone of Interest, which is such like an indie kind of like it's important for the times right now. Push, 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 and then they have
So
this
like unique and like everything,
and
unlike any movie you've ever seen.
and they have to push harder because those are both unique films,
Yeah.
especially Zone of Interest and then Past Lives. You know, it's hard. It's not like a Barbie, right? It's an indie movie, and it's like two people talking for. I'm not detrimenting. I love Past Lives, but I'm saying like the people who watch Barbie are not the same people who watch Past Lives. You know, we're talking anyway. Different subject. I think when you have those two, you have to push really hard. How much can you, in terms of a marketing team, push now? Iron Claw.
You don't
which
have to
is-
push the movie, just push him.
Just
He's
push
so
Zac.
good. He's so
Well,
good.
Okay, I would argue push the movie as well.
No,
but,
yeah. like
I mean, when you're pushing him,
I
you're
don't know.
pushing the entire movie, and
Because here's my thing. And I love Zone of Interest and I love Past Lives. I think they're both excellent. Zone of Interest, there is no way that movie is winning Best Picture. If it gets nominated, that is a freaking miracle. When I saw that movie, I was like, "There's no way they're nominating that thing for anything because it is so different and avant-garde." And again, I think it's terrific. It's in my 15 of the year somewhere. I think it's one of the best movies of the year. I could just not watch it several times like some of the other ones I could. It's a great film. Past Lives is also excellent, but The Iron Claw is something that would have been an Academy favorite 10, 15 years ago. And I think if you had a studio really pushing it, that it would have been like a top 5 contender. And again, because Alex, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Jared and George have yet.
No.
Okay.
No, I have not.
When you guys see the movie, you'll get what I mean. Like, even if you don't love it, it is such like a traditional Oscar-y movie. I think this isn't an episode about the Iron Claw. I could get there later. It's such a smarter movie than the traditional Oscar biopic-y thing, but that's what it's working on. And I think specifically Zac Efron's performance is the best male performance of the year, point blank period. Like, I don't even think there's a second play.
It's transformative because you think, oh, he's playing a wrestler. He was already in good shape before. He already kind of had that persona. He's going to play himself. His character it's like, I can't even describe it in words. That performance is so unique and personal. And in a year where that category is so stacked, he was in my 5. I loved his performance. I didn't think the movie was like the best thing ever, but he made me cry in an 8 out of 10 movie for me. So
yes.
that's
totally.
And then just speaking about distributors and like getting their act together, Search, like, what are you doing with All the Strangers? Why haven't we set because like Poor Things, it was like, okay, it's gonna go limited December 8th and like wide on the 22nd or whatnot. And All the Strangers just like, yeah, it's playing limited, you guys. Have fun. Enjoy life. And it makes me so mad because it's my number 1 of the year, and it could be another great Workshop of Humanity episode. What do you guys say about Zac Efron? I can't argue, of course, I haven't seen it. Is how I feel about Andrew Scott. I think he's utterly like unique and transformative. I just love so many things about that's a great movie. And it sucks because it's a stupid like release schedule. It's not on a lot of people's top 10. It's only really if you've seen it at a film festival that you have. If you have it in your top 10, it's like, dang, you guys are missing out on a great movie. But it'll hopefully be added once it goes wide. But yeah.
I thought it was okay. I didn't love it.
I saw your 3 stars.
It was fine. I had problems with it. I do think Claire Foy, because that category is, I mean, like kind of weaker. Like Emily Blunt was like in Oppenheimer like 5 minutes. So Claire Foy was amazing. So if anything, like that category is weaker. So
I think if anything, that's Rosamund Pike for Saltburn, though. To be honest.
She's all. Believe me, Jared, I'm on that train too.
Yeah, but like at least compared to Claire Foy, I would be like, I think it's more likely Rosamund Pike.
Has Claire Foy been nominated for anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just feel like that category, it's just kind of like a congratulations, you got nominated this year, but Divine Joy Randolph is winning the Oscar.
Watch out for, I think it's Daniel Brooks. I
love Daniel Brooks
in The Color Purple. Yeah.
That's another one like All of Us Strangers. I didn't love the movie. I thought it was just fine. But she like completely, it's very noticeable how when she enters the movie, it just becomes so much better. But Divine Joy Randolph is just, her performance is more quiet and the movie is better and her character has more of an arc for me. So.
It gives me the grandma from Minari vibes. Kind of that energy that she brings to the movie, you know? Yeah. Which is why I think she should win the Oscar. I think she's by far and away. Now, here's my supporting actress, do it, strangle the Academy for this. Rachel McAdams for Are You There? God, It's Me, Margaret.
Dude, for real.
Yes.
I'm on that train till the end of time.
Mm-hmm. The painting bird scene and the scene where she talks to Margaret about why they don't see her parents. That's like Oscar clip worthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the release date for that movie. It was like an awkward summer release.
Like late April.
I'm not sure if they knew what to do with it.
Like a weekend before Guardians. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
I'm
And
just,
get
but I'm
any
glad I saw it
Spirit
on
nomination
Blu-rays,
for some reason. Like, what the fuck?
Kathy Bates is also great in that movie. She was my favorite performance in that movie.
She is good. She's very good. That whole movie's great.
Joel star Kathy Bates.
And then there's Benny Safdie, who's just like playing everyone's favorite dad, I guess. So,
Yeah, he's there. He's vibing.
He's vibing.
have
That's
any of
great.
you guys been
When you mentioned
keeping up-
Benny Safdie, I almost thought you were gonna say Benny Safdie and the Curse. I was like, what the fuck?
He's
George,
everywhere.
have you kept up with the Curse? Like, are you?
I haven't caught back up with it yet. I'm on like episode 4 or 5.
Oh, I've watched them all up to this point, and it is just the most uncomfortable viewing experience. It is so funny, but like, I mean, it's like if The Office became bleak and existential. It is wild.
I've heard such weird things from it. Like everyone's like, yeah, it's like I haven't like been able to pinpoint like anybody who's like fully into one camp on that show.
Oh yeah, everyone's like, it's so uncomfortable. We're watching it with our eyes closed, like through our hands the entire time.
The moments I remember from the first episode, like from the first episode, just the first episode.
Yeah.
The scene with the baby tomatoes, right? And there's the scene there's the one scene in the bedroom. I'm specifically talking about the one with Emma Stone on the bed.
Yeah, that was our introduction to Poor Things right there. We're like, oh, we'll see more of this, I guess. Yeesh. Yeah, no, because I remember the first up because I wasn't like look, I'm a big Nathan Fielder fan. So going into it, I just known Nathan Fielder for Nathan For You in the Rehearsal and stuff, and going into it, I was like, oh no, this is very R-rated. Okay, all right.
I mean, it's a similar type beat to like The Rehearsal or Nathan For You, but it's just like in a purely like narrative format.
Yeah, but it's.
I will say I did see like the scene. There was a scene A24 posted where like he's doing an interview with Emma Stone about like their project, why they're there, and like he kind of like talks back to like the reporter, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's like generally like good. Like he's a good actor. Like, oh, okay, like awesome, like good for him. Like
that's the revelation of the show is the fact that it's like, oh, Nathan Fielder can actually act. Which I mean, it's gonna be a surprise because he is playing a character of himself.
He is acting, yeah.
He is acting, but like he's actually playing a character, and he's like very good. But I mean, I think Benny Safdie's character in that show is like one of the most reprehensible people of all time. Like the further and further in that show you get, you're like, this dude is awful. Like, how do they keep having this dude around? It's crazy. Anyways, I kind of recommend The Curse. I really like it, but if somebody was like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen, I'd be like, yeah, no, that checks out. Because it's a lot. But anyways, the Holdovers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Warm aesthetic. I'm glad we did this first to capsize on like the cold weather. At least I can only speak for California. It's like raining right now and overcast and like
whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. So
sound the sirens. It's raining.
It's raining in California. Oh boy. You're gonna call me next. It's raining in Seattle, right?
It doesn't rain where I live very often, so
yeah.
Well, you're in SoCal, so you know.
Yeah. We
Here
love California.
Here it's like 62 and sunny because it's Florida.
Florida, I cannot deal with humidity like that every day. Like,
oh god, don't come to Tennessee then.
No, it's disgusting. It's worse than Florida. Like Florida's the most humid place of all time. Like, just, like you're just wet.
Why does anyone live in Florida? It's humid. Ron DeSantis is your governor. Like, come on.
It's only for Disney World, and I'm also at that point like, yeah, no, it is like. This is like, I would rather live anywhere else for climate sake and politics sake, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. Which is why maybe we'll see. Look, outside of this podcast, which I'm hoping to keep up on a weekly basis, and I actually think is going to be possible with my new schedule. Yay. There's gonna be some changes that happen this year in my life, so like stay tuned for that because I think this time next year I will not be in this state, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, right now I'm looking at jobs in Atlanta and New York, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that lands. So, not that that would fix how expensive things are, but maybe it's. I'm not getting into that in the podcast.
If all else fails, go to like a New England boarding school. Maybe volunteer to stay over the holidays. Watch a couple holdovers. All that jazz.
Mm-hmm. I'll like bring my little like cup and be like, please donate to my fund to go to more film festivals. That's what I want. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can say this on the podcast that I am planning on going to South by Southwest in March, so that should be exciting and fun. Yay!
Hype!
Yeah, cool.
I'm hopefully going to TIFF this year.
Also, hopefully going to TIFF, maybe.
Let's do this big reunion thing.
Also, like, kind of considering like applying for 3 days in Cannes.
I would love to do that. I just don't know if I'll have the money to. That's the only issue.
I don't know if I'll have the money to either, but I kind of want to like try it.
Yeah.
And I'll get to go to France and watch, the next Zone of Interest.
Yeah. It looks like such a cool snooty festival. I want to go.
That's like one of my things. I want to go to Cannes. I want to go to Sundance. It's like the top two.
Yeah.
Sundance, yeah. That's this month. I don't know what we're doing with that, but
I'm gonna get some stuff here.
Oh yeah, that's coming up in a few weeks, isn't it?
A couple of weeks, yeah.
Are tickets on sale?
Single tickets go on sale on the 11th, but you get the $360 online pass.
I can't fucking
for 10 movies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There we go.
Remember 2020 Sundance? What a beautiful time that was.
Oh, vibes are great.
2021 Sundance. Oh, that was so good. That was so
great.
good.
Yeah.
That was a great time. That was a great one.
Imagine seeing, like, we all saw Coda, like, as it premiered, not having a clue it would be our next best picture. Like, so amazing that
Before, like,
that movie.
We watched. Alex, have you heard of Strawberry Mansion? Can I tell you?
Yeah, because you always promote the hell out of it. I don't know. I don't even know what that damn movie is. Like, is it about fruit? Is it about real estate? I don't know.
It's kind of about real estate. I'm not gonna lie. It's more about real estate than it is about fruit.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Also,
imagine if Jim Henson and David Lynch were like, let's make a movie together. If that was the alternative reality that
I've always wanted. That's always been in my head. It's always something.
It's always something that I've wanted.
Oh man! Also, Masks I think was that year.
That was
which is that year. Yeah, amazing. That was generally like a really great movie, and yeah.
Oh my god! What a crazy time.
You know, I think that's kind of the exciting thing about starting a new year in film. Is like we don't know what our favorite movies are going to be because like who even knows what's coming out at that point, you know? Like
I mean, last year we thought we would see Dune and Challengers, and here we are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I'm not too excited for the slate of movies we have this year, but again, I don't know about most of them. I feel like I don't know that what they even are yet, so I can't say that it's going to be a terrible year for movies.
I'm sorry. I'm too optimistic to say it's gonna be a terrible. I very much get what you're saying because of the strikes and whatnot. I don't see terrible year for movies being the thesis statement of 2024. I do think it's gonna be indies that save the day. The movies that have been filming during the strike, like the Mother Marys and international, that are gonna come and save the day. If anything,
I kind of think what Alex was just saying is like the slate of movies that we have so far is not as exciting, but as the year progresses, we'll always learn about new movies.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
just
get
don't.
that, yeah.
I don't know about a lot. I'm just speaking generally in terms of what we know is coming out.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't even know what the big Oscar contenders are going to be for 2025. So
I think it's Dune 2.
well, obviously,
Everything-
yeah.
Yeah, and everything else is gonna be a maybe,
Yeah.
maybe Mickey
Blitz,
17.
I think is
And-
happening.
Yeah, and in a perfect
Mickey
world,
17 will not be Best Picture.
yeah, no, I agree with that. But
I read the book. It's a fine book. It's a very much like a hard sci-fi movie, and I also don't think Bong Joon-ho actually cares about winning Oscars. I think he Parasite was just kind of a fluke.
well, Parasite was just kind of undeniable. It was so good that it was undeniable. for that thing to win.
Parasite's amazing, you guys. Like I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know how good.
Yeah.
It's like the most logged movie on Letterboxd or something shit like that.
Now, if we lived in a perfect world, the award season would be swept by the new Don Hertzfeldt movie, Me. But we all know that's not happening because
Or Kinds of Kindness.
Oh, Kinds of Kindness is going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
that could
I'm so
actually
hyped.
happen in a more realistic world.
I
The new
saw
Guardians story.
I saw one of. I think Brett knows this. I saw one of the most anticipated movies of 2024 at a test screening. I cannot talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah.
But I think there'd be like someone with a gun at my head within like 5 minutes. But after I'll let you guys know. But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I know, and it's like, why do I live in Florida? You've already seen that movie.
I know.
Because like, look, not should I even say? Never mind. I have two of my favorite directors working right now. And one of those directors is it's his movie that's coming out. So that's all I'll say. I won't actually say what the name is, just to be safe. Even
I have
though
a
both
feeling I
directors
know
have a
what
movie
this
coming out this year, so yay.
I have a feeling I know what this is.
Yeah.
I won't say it.
I will say one. I think Twisters could be like. I know it's Twisters, right? Okay, but hear me out. This is Lee Isaac Chung from Minari.
Yeah.
Right, and like you see Minari, and he has like a thing about like nature. I'm just so interested. I need a trailer that has a stacked cast. You have Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell 2024 could be his year with this and Hitman. I
Totally.
mean, like, yeah. And he's coming hot after Anyone But You and all that jazz.
That movie everyone universally loved, Anyone But You.
Oh my god.
Challengers
then-
is one of my most anticipated.
Yeah,
it looks
that's
really
mine as
fun.
well. I would
I
put
have the script
Queer-
for it.
I would put Queer as number 2. I'm just not 100% sure if that's coming out this year. I know the filming's done, but I don't know if they're gonna like release 2 Luca Guadagnino movies in the same year. But so that's why I'm kind of keeping it off my list. But if it confirms like 100% to get a distributor, I'll put it on my list.
Jared, this is the year that you gotta watch Suspiria.
I'm gonna watch it like with closed eyes.
Which one?
Like the Luca one, because Jared's such a
Yeah.
big Luca Guadagnino fan, and I'm like, you gotta
Yeah.
watch Suspiria. Oh,
Also Driveway Dolls, which I thought was going to come out this year, but it didn't. That movie looks so good.
Yeah,
I think it looks like a
not
lot
to
of
be an
fun.
Oscar contender. It's a February release, but it'll be like
Yeah.
probably my favorite of the year for a couple months until
Yeah.
like summer. It looks so good.
Also, I'm very excited for Anora, the new Sean Baker movie.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
What about The Beekeeper?
Oh yeah, let's go.
So I
Bees.
watched Saltburn with a lot of friends, and we got the trailer for that, and my friends were kind of unanimously like,
Dude,
hell yeah!
I was
like,
so confused when I saw that trailer. I was like, "What is this? And what does the title refer to? Is it like about like what is this?"
also, I guess I'll see if a trailer changes everyone's mind. I feel like I'm the only one excited for Quiet Place Day One, but here's why I'm excited. It's the director of Pig. And so I remember the vibe of that movie being like everyone thinking it's a Nicolas Cage like revenge action thriller, but it's actually not, more of like a quiet drama. I wonder if he's going to apply that to day one. If it's about day one of A Quiet Place, what if it's just a drama about these scientists who might have created something and maybe kind of debating if they're going to release it or not, and kind of like like if the movie's actually more drama and then maybe the horror kind of happens in the later half, I think that could be like very interesting to see. So I'm very intrigued by that as well. We'll see when the trailer comes out and if it's just going to be just more like violent monsters. I don't know, but that has my attention.
Have you guys seen the show Comedy Bang Bang or the podcast? Listen to it.
No.
The Beekeeper. That's all I think of is that would be a bit on that show because they do like weird bits sometimes about like fake movie trailers or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, no, the Beekeeper. Jason Statham sounds like a Comedy Bang Bang joke, and it's actually a movie that exists in our year 2024. But yeah, we love workshopping humanity. We've always been known about our tangents.
Yeah.
And even in its new era, we still have our tangents, and we love it. It's great. Here we are. But yeah, I think we can kind of just wrap up what our thoughts on the Holdovers are. Does anyone have anything else to say about the Holdovers in particular? Anything they want to get out?
I would just recommend watch it as soon as you can if you haven't, kind of to just capsize on like the weather of it all. As it just capsize if you're in an area like me, it's like kind of like cold and it's nice to put a blanket on in the evening and kind of watch it. I don't know how well it will hit like over the summer. So yeah, I would just recommend watch it like as soon as possible. Yeah.
Christmas in July though, at least is that,
That's true, yeah. And it's just a funny, heartwarming, but also kind of sad movie, but just like life. Perfect mix. You got a really good screenplay. Check it out.
Yeah.
And it's not saccharine. It's very heartwarming and sweet, even if it's very depressing. And Paul Giamatti, I love him. And that's you guys have said pretty much everything I could say about it.
Nice. And well, I think that has been the podcast. So, yes, with kind of the layout of the year, I'm going to keep this up for a weekly basis. I'm just going to say it right here. We'll be back next week. Next week's episode is going to be on past lives. And then the week after that is Barbie and Oppenheimer again, because we technically did do an episode on that when it came out over the summer. But there is a lot to say about that. So we'll continue there for award season. And then the last week is going to be Poor Things. And then February, I don't know what's going to happen yet. We'll figure that out. Yeah. Again, I'm thinking about what the theme is going to be. I haven't really decided yet, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, and that's been the podcast. Thanks for sticking around. I think 2024 is going to be a really interesting, cool year for this whole project. I'm really excited to see what we do next. Make sure to check our website out, workshoppinghumanity.com, for articles, reviews, podcasts, all that fun, dumb stuff. And then, you can check us all out. I also have my own little project, Skipper_Scott, where I'm making videos there. And I know George has something in the book cooking right now too. Stay tuned for all of that, and we'll see you guys next time.
When you have a taste for the holidays, you want a soft drink that tastes like the holidays. You want the crisp, clean choice that's everyone's favorite icebreaker. 7-Up, the Uncola. Because you never know who might drop in.
Stop by the Winter Wonderland for holiday savings on all 7-Up products. And make the season bright.